Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Raid Shadow Legends. And in today's video, I want to talk about the upcoming fusion event that's going to be starting on Monday. Now, we showed this character off in my last video where we talked about some data mine champions. So I'm actually really happy to say that it is the one that I wanted it to have. The character I wanted to be the fusion. But I just I didn't think it was going to be a Shadow King character. We're going to talk about and break down this character. We're also going to be doing a bit of a prep guide, basically what you should be doing in order to prepare for a traditional fusion event, because that is what's going to be happening on Monday for Yuki Masa, I believe, Snow Demon, blah 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 blah, the character that's going to be released for the Shadowkin, and what you can do to make sure that you're on the right track, basically, for this event starting Monday. Now, before we get started with the video, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started playing Raid yet, what are you waiting for? Download using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen or in the description below. Make a new account. Get an Arm of the Returned absolutely free. Amazing reworked Legendary of the Knights Revenant. And also these three amazing epics, Allure, Tagore, and Ruella at account level 10, 20, and 30. And don't forget to use the promo code Demon Slayer to get Tholen Falbeard, legendary DPS, great champion here within the first 48 hours of a brand new account. We'll actually talk a little bit about him in today's video because he also was a traditional fusion event in June. Okay, so really quickly here though. Now, you might have remembered in the bottom right hand of the corner, if you watched my previous video, this is Yuki Masa. Now, just some other clarities really quickly. The one next to him, is a dwarf champion. This was confirmed in the data mines. Also, the other one on the other side of the mythical is also a dwarf. This one over here confirmed Banner Lord. So these are the upcoming patch characters. I just wanted to reiterate this again. And a upcoming mythical, which we don't know what faction, but I honestly think it's going to be Dark Elf. We'll see when they announce it. Probably in about a week's time, we'll see. So I want to thank Nub Raids, because this is the channel that I do tend to watch the most here as far as other creators go. And I want to talk about the kit for the character really quick. So I want to put myself away and zoom in a touch here. Now, he is an attack-based champion of the Shadowkin faction. But he does focus a lot on freeze mechanics. But he does have a revive mechanic, which is very rare within the faction, at least. So he does an AoE A1, and it has a 25% chance of placing a block active skills. This is kind of neat. And he's got this mechanic on basically every single attack where the debuff cannot be resisted if at least one enemy is under stun, freeze, sleep, fear, true fear, provoke, or petrification. So some sort of control debuff. So by himself, he cannot do that. I mean, I guess he could. And then the rest of his skills become unresistible. But if you pair him with someone who can do this, it makes it a little bit easier, but it's very conditional. Instantly activates the skill whenever this champion skips a turn because of one of those control mechanics. So basically, if he gets controlled, he also gets some additional buffs, which is interesting too. Attacks all enemies on his A2, will ignore block damage, and then has a 75% chance of placing a freeze debuff on all enemies. So kind of like Yakarl the Scourge a little, well, at least in the AoE free. Okay, it's an AoE freeze, a 75% up to 100% with the books. Again, the debuff can't be resisted, blah, 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 blah. And this is where the revive comes in, but it is a random ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. But this could be very helpful in like faction crypts where there really isn't a lot of good options to revive characters. If this skill does not kill an enemy, it revives all allies if it does kill at least one enemy. So I'm curious as to sort of how much damage is this going to do, I guess. It is on a cooldown of 3, so I'm hoping that his nuking potential is decent. His A3 Stain the Snows is a single target attack. Before attacking, steals all turn meter from the target, so this would be pretty good for like the boss fights in faction crypts, but also just in general. This effect cannot be resisted, blah, 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 if they're under any controls. Now, bosses and things like that will not be able to be controlled, so you will probably want to have a little bit of accuracy on this guy. Now, what's really interesting is that this attack equalizes the target's defense with this champion's defense for this attack. So you don't want to have a lot of defense on this character so that you can take advantage of this skill. The damage inflicted by the skill increases by the amount of turn meter stolen. And finally, his passive fills this champion's turn meter by 50% whenever he skips a turn because of a control mechanic. So that is pretty good as well, right? And then whenever this champion skips a turn because of that, the next active skill will ignore 50% of the target's defense, which is massive. But to kind of set this up, though, it's like saying that he wants to be controlled, and that's I guess you could see it as more of a bonus and not just, I guess, trying to force it, I suppose. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about, though, is how you can prepare for this. And I want to take a look at some of the other fusion event calendars, specifically the traditional fusions, which is you have to get 16 rares to fuse up to 4 epics, and then you fuse the legendary character. Okay, so now this was Granite Dorky. This is where they had the rare Glade Wolves, and then they had the epic Hilda Arnon daughter, who's down here. And so there was a total of 16 rares up for grabs. But with the initial Summon Rush event that tends to be on the first Friday, you can actually earn yourself a rare and an epic. To get the epic, it typically requires around 12 sacred shards. Okay, so that's interesting because then if you shortcut the Summon Rush by getting the epic, that allows you to skip basically 4 other events, including the Champion Chase event, which starts later on in the fusion. So that and then 3 more on top. So you could skip getting the rare from the Champion Chase and then skip 3 other ones that you don't like so much, such as like Gear Hunters or Champion Training or something like this, depending on what your resources allow. Now, this is very similar to the Tholan Falbeard event where you had this rare Void Glensage Cithril, and then you had an epic, my screen's blocking, there we go, a Nerix Blackhorn, the epic there, and the same thing happened with Summon Rush, right? You'd be able to Summon Rush, and you could get yourself 1 rare and 1 epic if you went as far as around 6,200 milestone points, which is equivalent to around 12 sacred shards, or just a little bit more than this. So that's something that's really important for people to understand, that doing a fusion event does require you to have decent amount of resources. And these are the resources that I want to break down. So you can see on the, let's go to the back to Granite anyways, the types of events. There's always going to be 1 tournament for every dungeon. Fire Knight, Dragon, Ice Golem, and Spider. Those 4 are in every single fusion and Titan event, like without fail. Then you have Gear Hunters, which was old Dungeon Divers. And so you have Gear Hunters 1, Gear Hunters 2, Gear Hunters 3. This kind of sucks, but they normally overlap a little bit with events such as dungeon tournaments or champion training events, in some cases, not all the time. So this allows you to be able to double dip, which is really important. That being said, Gear Hunters often requires you to go above and beyond the tournaments, because normally by the time you finish the tournaments, you still have more gear that you need to farm in order to fulfill the Gear Hunters. So as far as energy and gem costs go, this tends to be one of the, I was going to say worser, but I know that's not a word. It's the it's not so good. It's the worst ones of the fusions, I think. Then you have your gear enhancements, and that's going to be 1, 2, and 3. Then you have also Champion Training Tournament and Champion Training Event. Those are 2 separate ones. They normally have roughly the same requirements, though, on that. Classic Arena 1, 2. Sometimes is there 3 sometimes? I think it's usually just 2. But these are the easiest ones. If you're someone that, if you're a very new player and you just want to collect the rares or even 1 epic, Classic Arena is very easy to do for pretty much everyone, so it's not that big of a deal. And then we have Gear Enhancement 1, 2, and 3, and this requires a fair bit of silver. So these are the kinds of things I want to break down, right? So what can you do to prepare? Well, you could hoard some energy like I am, just in for the first week of events. This can help you a lot. And I kind of just, how do you hoard energy? Well, you just kind of pick up energy, like the excess energy, and not use them. So whether it comes from your playtime rewards, and that's totally up to you if you want to do that. I'm not saying you have to do this at all. And then, some of these other pots that you get throughout the day, your daily classic arena, some of the advanced quests that give you additional energy, and I just stockpiled this for a little while. That's just me, because I'm kind of busy. I have a lot of things going on, and so I didn't have a lot of time to spend it. The other thing is that you need silver, right? This is for Gear Enhancement 1, 2, and 3, and I would say that you typically need comfortably about 15 to 20 million per event. Now, that's roughly, I would say you could probably do this within 50 million silver. That does sound like a lot, but I guarantee you that if you open up your inventory and you check how much gear you have, that you probably have, quite a bit of gold here that you could sell, right? Like in my artifact section, I'm sitting at 1,468. In my accessory section, I'm sitting at 927. There's definitely some stuff in here. There's 100% stuff that I can liquidate. So that's something that you should consider before going into the fusion event, so you're not scrambling later go through what you need to sell, break down. I actually have some videos on my channel if you want to take a look on selling 101, basically what I look out for in terms of how to sell your gear. Gems is always a great thing to save onto because that turns into energy, right? At least 40 gems are going to give you 130 energy, which is basically the lifeblood of finishing up the tournaments, finishing up champion training if you need to, and anything that's energy related in that sense, gear divers as well, right? Things like that. But you need to really double check to see what your supplies of shards are. So you are not going to be able to clear Summon Rush, and especially if you want to shortcut it for the Epic, which I recommend you doing because that allows you to skip all of those other events, is to make sure that you can get to those 6,200 points. So Mystery Shards are worth 1 point. Ancient Shards are worth 20 points. Void Shards are worth 120 points. I actually forget how many points Primal Shards are worth. Someone can actually correct me in the comments down below. For some reason, I forgot to write that down. I almost never pull Primal Shards, but this can be a way for you to kind of bridge the gap on this. And then Sacred Shards are going to be worth 500. So like I said, it's roughly to the equivalent about 12 Sacred Shards. As far as Voids go, I believe that's around 50 Void Shards. I have 22 because 120, 10 would be 1,200 times 5 would be 6,000. So yeah, around 50 Void Shards or so that you would need in order to clear the Summon Rush. Not that I recommend using Void Shards for Summon Rush if you can avoid this, because Void Shards do better on Champion Chase where you get bonuses for Void Champions. So typically I would try to use some combination of Mystery Shards, Ancient Shards, and Sacred Shards to get to that 6,200 number. So this is important, and you should calculate this immediately, or at least within the next couple of days, and because the Summon Rush is going to be next Friday, so you have about 1 week to make sure that you hoard in favor of that event, or you buy something if you want to bridge the gap. But making sure that you can get to that point total of about 6,200 by next Friday. Do a little bit of a calculation on your side, because if you can't do these events, if you can't do the summon events, then you can't really clear the fusion event. You could collect, however, some, if you want, you could collect some of the rares and the epics and stuff like that, for your roster and whatnot, and this might be useful for you. But if you can't clear the summoning part of the event, you're not going to complete the fusion. Unfortunately, that's the reality. But I do find that traditional fusions are a little bit easier because of that Summon Rush ability to get the full epic, which allows you to skip those 3 or 4 events, which is pretty nice. The other thing that you might want to do is you might want to pre-build some food. And what does that mean? Well, I mean, if you're not doing a whole lot between now and Monday, what you could do is just do some campaign grinding and then kind of make sure that you're sitting. I don't know if I have a lot actually, but like level up your 3 stars to level 30 and just sit them at 3-star 30 so they're ready to upgrade, that they're ready to level up, so that when champion training comes around that you'll have stuff ready to go. That's kind of what I mean. Now you could do this with 2 stars at level 20 or 3 stars at level 30. That's the kind of thing, because then it makes it very easy for you to do the new quality of life brew upgrade. I'm not going to do it here because they're not level 1, but for example, right, you would just go blah 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 blah, pick your rares, or pick your void rares, or whatever affinity they are, pump the brews into them, and you'll get some very fast levels. You'll get some very fast champion training XP, or milestone points is what I meant to say, and XP, I guess, for the characters. So this is some of the easiest ways for you to be able to do that. I'm not going to do that just now, but preparing for champion training makes it very easy. And now with the brew stuff, and I'm not actually, another thing with the brew upgrades, I guess I could show you this now. Filter, reserve vault. I think I have some epics still that I haven't brewed, right? So I have these level 1 epics probably. I should do. Yeah, I get there's some, not so many, that you can basically go bop, 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 and then brew, put 4 in. You want to put 4 into 4 stars. Do this for champion training, and you're going to get a lot of points very quickly without even having to lift a finger, except for, I guess, clicking your mouse or you're tapping your screen. But it's very fast for you to do that. They've made champion training significantly easier in that regard. So yes, gems, silver, some energy, and definitely shards are going to be the things that you're going to need to help clear your fusion event. I guess that's about it. We'll talk about that more, of course, once we know the schedule, and then we can set a proper path forward, I suppose, on Sunday or Monday, whenever they release that. And that's going to be it for today's Friday video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and if you're going to be going for a Yuki Masa in the comments. Otherwise, before we go, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started playing Raid yet, what are you waiting for? Get out from under that rock, download using the QR code in the top right to get an Arm of the Returned, recently reworked with Knights Revenant, and these 3 amazing epics: Allure, level 10, Tagore, 20, and Ruella at level 30. And also, don't forget to use the promo code Demon Slayer to get this amazing previous traditional fusion event character, Tholan Falbeard. Within the first 40 years of the brand new account, use Demon Slayer. That's it for now, everyone, and I'll see you guys all on the next video. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be greatly helping out the channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.